Welcome everyone to our cycle of conferences called Homme, Territoire, Société. This cycle aims to welcome every month a French researcher that works about Indonesia and on Indonesia. And these researchers work on humanities and societies. This evening, our guest lecturer is Dr. Ariadna Burgos from the Muséum National d'Histoire Naturelle in Paris. So before telling you a little bit more about our guest, I would like to thank our partners. It's the French School for Asian Studies, FAO, thank you for being here, who actually co-organize all of these events. And I would like to thank the French National Institute for Sustainable Development, so the l'IRD, for their technical support. So back to Dr. Ariadna Burgos. She's a researcher in the Institute for Sustainable Development, so l'IRD, and she has a PhD in ethnoecology and works in the French Museum of Natural History. Her research focuses on socio-ecological dynamics of coastal ecosystems and the evolution of artisanal fisheries. She's currently conducting research on local marine heritage and common pool marine resources management in Flores and Aturo Island in Timor Leste. So tonight's conference is titled Shellfishing in Indonesia and Timor Leste, Practices, Knowledge and Challenges. So please welcome Dr. Ariadna Burgos. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. I know there are many things going on at the same time, so thank you. I want to thank also the IFI and FAO also for receiving me and for having me, inviting me. Okay, so I will present my work in molluscan fisheries or shell fisheries in Indonesia and Timor Leste. It's called Practices, Knowledge and Challenges. I am from the Laboratory of Local Heritage, Environment and Globalization from Paris, from the IRD, which is based at the French National Museum of Natural History. I'm currently doing my postdoc in Timor Leste. So humans have been interacting with mollusks since the origin of our own species and well beyond. There are archaeological traces of Homo erectus engraving over the shells almost 500,000 years ago. And what is interesting about mollusks, and I just want to say that mollusks is a group, a big family group, and I will be just talking about bivalves and gastropods. We will see, so this one right here, this one is a bivalve, and this is a gastropod. What is interesting about mollusks is that there are both aspects that are used. The flesh, which is the meat of the mollusk, but also the shell. And there are many different industries associated to mollusks. There's industries for mollusks, the shell for paving material, as souvenirs. They sell for making jewelry and for eating. So I will be presenting mostly shells that are used for eating, but we keep in mind that the shells are for many different uses. Also for currency, I forgot to say, in Papua New Guinea here. This is in Papua New Guinea, in Kavieng. So before, shells were used as money. Now it's not the case, but still there are some exchange. But beyond mollusks being used by humans, mollusks also play a very important ecological role. First, mollusks are important indicators of coastal change and habitat quality. And secondly, they provide support for other organisms to live. So the shell, when it comes, it makes a sort of a structural habitat for other type of organisms. Shells also play a role stabilizing the shoreline in the carbon cycle and nutrients too. So shells are called engineers of ecosystems because they play a very important role in all the processes of ecosystems. I will talk about two sites where I've been conducting research. One is in Siberut here in West Sumatra, and one is here in Atauro in East Timor. The main difference between these two sites is that one is mangrove forest, and the other one is coral reefs, mostly coral reefs. And what I would like to present to you is the way people go look for shells, what's the knowledge associated to gather shells, and also the challenge that these people is facing because there's a lot of changes in their ways of life, as we will see later. So, just to recall, the work that I have been doing mixes anthropological, ecological, and geographical approaches. In anthropology, I work with interviews, participatory observation. We go to the field and we work with the people. And in geography, I was working a lot with toponyms, local places, local name of places. Okay, so here is Siberut, so located in West Sumatra. Here is the place where I was working. It's Katurei Bay, this bay, and I was based here in the village of Sarasao. Here in Katurei, there are more or less 2,000 people living there, which a third of the people are kids. There are 2/3 of the population are children. Here is the mangrove, and people, as we will see, women will go to the mangrove, to these places. And what was interesting also about toponyms and local names is that the entire mangrove, it's located by toponyms, and it's very easy to locate themselves within the mangrove. They can say, okay, we will meet in Malagai, and everybody knows Malagai is here. We will meet in this side, and for instance, I don't know, there's so many. In Tiop, we will meet where there are many names I didn't put here, but this is a very accurate reference system. In this mangrove has the particularity that there are the women who are the main person who go fishing. Men, the role of men is to build houses, to go in the forest, to cut trees, and the role of women, because we have very separated tasks, is to go look for the everyday proteins. Every day, women go to the mangrove. They can go 2, 3, as we see here, 3 generations, but they go by themselves. When they found each other in the mangrove, the first question that woman would ask to the other is, where do you come from? So this is why the local name, these names are very important. They play an important role to know where the people have been fishing. Because shells are harvested all through the year. Shells are available all through the year. We can go anytime there are shells, but we would go mostly during low tides because it's easier to access. And during spring tides, when the moon, where there's a big moon or where there's no moon, there's the best moment to go shell fishing. But also in time of shortage, when there's no fish, we know where the shells are. We know how to look for them. It requires skills, it requires endurance, and it requires knowledge. But shells are always in the same side because they move. They don't move too much. This is Moluska, or they are fixed in the same place. So we can define where are the shells located, but what is hard is how to get them. It's risky, and it's not a very easy task. So, as I said, the shells would provide proteins when there's nothing else to eat. But it's not the main reason why people shellfish. There are many reasons why people go look for shells, and it's an assessment of all the potential sources of food resources. Once we have assessed this, we say, okay, it's time to go for shells, or because the weather is too bad to go fishing. Yeah? So it requires endurance, and it requires knowledge about species lifestyles, but also fishing dynamics, because we cannot go look for shells in the place where another woman has gone the day before. And this is why it's so important to know the local names and the locality where people have been fishing to make our efforts better. So what was interesting in this mangrove, this is a longitudinal shim of the mangrove. So let's say here it's the ocean, and here is a river coming and goes to the ocean. The mangrove is not the same everywhere. The mangrove change is the floristic association changes here, 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 here. And local people have different names to classify all these type of different forests. In each type of different forest, they have an associated mollusk diversity. And when I would ask people, oh, this species, where do I look for this species, for instance, megu, the name was megu, they would say, oh, this species, it's here in Bakat Dalam, and it's friend of Tainuktuk, is friend of, not Tainuktuk, is friend of this other shell and other shell. So the local people have knowledge about the landscape, they classify the landscape, they know exactly what type of shells are associated to each habitat. So it's very detailed, their knowledge regarding the localities of shellfish. So I will present two sites. We have shells everywhere, even here. There are 12 species here, but I decide to present two sites and gathering techniques regarding these two sites. So we are here. We are in the Bakat Coat. So in the Bakat Coat, we can see it's like this. Here we think it's 80 centimeters inside the mud. Here is the mud. Here are the roots of the mangrove. So we will find 14 species associated to this habitat. And so we have species living in the dead wood, on the leaves, on the bark, on the surface of the mud, within the roots, and inside the mud. So there are these two shells right here, and this is called Sicoira and Tainuktuk. Both of these shells are 80 centimeters within the mud. So when people go look for shells, for this type of shells, so Sicoira and Tainuktuk, the woman has to put the hands on the roots of the tree, and they don't move too quickly in the mangrove. They have to stay in the same side, and with the feet, they start digging down. And here, the first part of the mud will be soft, right here. This part is soft, so we can go deep. But when we want to access this side, it's actually pretty hard. And it's like they call this type of looking for shells in Papua New Guinea, because they have the same technique. It's called the dancing technique. Because with the feet, we have to go little by little, and the shell will be identified with the tools, and they will put the shell on the top of the feet and take it out. For me, it was very long to learn to do that. It was not easy. I would always confuse myself with pieces of wood and everything. It was a little bit hard. But once I learned to learn to look for this shell. So I stayed on the field almost 1 year without any without going out. I stayed 1 year on the field, living with the local people. No internet, no electricity, and everybody knew me as Ariadna when I got there. And when I was able to look for this shell, I was not anymore Ariadna, but I was the white girl who knows how to look Sicoira and Tignuktuk. And when they would introduce me, that would be the first thing that they would say about me. She knows how to look after Tignuktuk and Sicoira. So actually, this sort of technique gave me a sort of prestige, but not only to me, but to the woman who knew how to look for these shells, because it's very different to go look for these big bivalves that are hard to get, that for small gastropods that are not that hard to get, that we can collect them easily, but they are hard to take the meat out. And the reason why I work with drawings is because in the picture we cannot see what's going on inside the water, right here. All this part. So this is my adoptive mother, Ina Lucia, and was the one who taught me how to look for shells. Another type of shells that we can look after is they are found in this area of the mangrove. So we are in the Bacatalam, right here. And so people, here the shell is not that deep down in the floor, maybe 5 to 10 centimeters. And people would walk, and differently from Sicoira and Tignuktuk, that the feet go like this. For this shell, the feet go in the other side, horizontally. And we can also use the hands to look for this shell. Right here, we can use the hands or the feet, but it's quite difficult. You have to clean the mangrove roots. You have to walk in the mud where there's a lot of wood and that can go inside the feet. So we have to have a lot of take a lot of measures not to get wounds in this zone. And there's another technique, and that was interesting. They use a sort of machete, and they would walk making lines on the floor. And what it was amazing is that they were able to recognize by the sound of the impact of the machete with the shell, whether it was gogonon or whether it was megu. When it was gogonon, they wouldn't bother to pick it up because it's a very heavy shell. It's not a lot of meat, and so to carry it and to get a little bit, they wouldn't do. And they would only get down. So when it's unstuck, they wouldn't go down, and when it's a they would go down to pick up the shell. So to look for shells, there's not only the hands, the feet, the hands, but we have to have a very high sensibility on the feet, on the sound too. So again here, why it was important for me to know all the toponyms and local names? Because people, with the knowledge of these sites, I would go and ask to the ladies, to 68 women who fish out of 112 that were in the village. I would ask them, okay, where would be the best place where I can go look for megu? And they would say, if you want to go look for megu, 70% to 75%, all of them agree that the best place was Batmakalu. Whether for the distribution of Australia corrugata, most of the people would say, no, this species you have to go to Malagai. So this allowed me to not only to locate the shells within the forest, if it was in the Bacatalam, in the Bacatcoat, but also in the bay. Where are the distribution of these shells? So now we make a jump to Atauro Island, and this is another type of ecosystem, very different from the one in seaweed. And in this ecosystem, we are mostly with coral reefs. And in Atauro, I work mostly in the village of Acrema and Waruana, here in the north part. This is an island more or less of 10 kilometers, not highly populated. There's more or less 12,000 people living on the entire island. And people live a lot from shells, but there are many conservation initiatives that have gone now, and that make that people cannot actually fish in the localities where they used to fish before. There's some NGOs that have gone there for conservation purposes. I wouldn't say that it's good or it's bad, but I think it blocks the people a little bit. We'll see in the change. So what else can I say here? So it's coral reefs. So here the difference, we are in another type of environment, completely different from the mangrove, but they also have names to locate all these different areas. I have not put here the names, but they do. Kerelili is only the place where this go down, where the coral reef go down. This is Kerelara. They have another type of name, but what is interesting to remark is that they do have definitions for every type of habitat. They have names, and according to this type of habitats, we have different techniques for gathering shells, whether it's on the floor, buried on the floor, or we can pick them up on the rocks, or we can go look for them inside the rocks right here, or we can go dive for them. In seaweed, I found 45 species, and most of them were bivalves. In Atauro, I found 65 species, of which 42 gastropods and 20 bivalves and 3 cephalopods. Cephalopods I included here, but cephalopods are like squids, octopus, and they use it. So I found 62 edible species, and 12 of them are sold in the local market. Whether in seaweed, there was only one shell that was sold in the market, but like 10 years ago, and actually there's no more this shell because they took it all that it was there. It's an Adara granosa, maybe you have it. They sell it here, and they took a lot from the mangrove, and the species completely disappeared. Because it was the only way to have a little bit of money, the only way to have a little bit of economic resource. So here we have also associations, and this species, Nerita, which I say is the species where some people say, oh, I'm poor, I eat this species. And I was like, why you associate poorness with this species? And it's because this species might be the most easy to get. Everybody can do it. There's everywhere. If there's nothing to eat, it's easy. You go on the rocks and you get this species Nerita, and you have your meal. Turbocetosus is the species that they eat the most. Tridagna, here Tridagna, it's found on the rocks. This is an species which is CITES, and it has conservation status. And here we have the Asaphis violensis, which is the one that we eat the most and sell the most. Not eat the most, but is the species that we sell the most. And Tectus niloticus, this species was harvested before for selling to Indonesians who would get this one to make buttons or to make jewelry. And the species has decreased a lot. And they have now seasons where this species is not allowed to be taken. So the gathering of Kara, we come back here. the gathering of this species, which is here, a difference from Siberut, women, men, and children go look after this species. Women are the primary gatherers, but it doesn't exclude men to go look for this shell. Kids also, and this is everywhere. Kids have a lot of information, and I've seen them cooking by themselves, getting the shell by themselves, everything by themselves. So it provides nutritious food for children. So the gathering technique requires the use of an iron bar to go down and dig on the floor until we get the shell. Shells can be harvested in one site, and then they will put the shells in another site, again back in the soil, so that for market days. So they will go to a site where it's far from the village. They will get the shells. They bring it back to their village. Let's say Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday. They put it back there. They create a sort of habitat, and Saturday they get them out and they sell them in the market. Let's say that 2 hours of Asaphis Violances collection, we can take up to 100 or 150 shells. And a dish containing 20 to 30 shells, it's sold at $1, and it can provide food for 2 or 3 people. This is the resulting of eating shells in Siberut. So we can see that huge amounts of shells have been eaten, and that shells are used here actually so that we cover the mud, and it's easier for the boat to get to the shore, and it's easier for us to walk without getting our feet dirty with the mud. So they have a lot of uses also for the shell. So let's talk about changes now. These communities are confronting big changes, cultural changes, social and ecological changes. For instance, shells can be eaten, but some of them have decreased the collection of shells to eat noodles, Asian noodles, because Asian noodles. So there's change in the way people is eating, and in the way people is choosing what they eat, and in the way people invest their money to it. So, for instance, before they would take a lot of shells and eat a dish of shells. Now they will take maybe less shells and they mix it with noodles, and it provides food. It decreases the nutrition of the people on the place. There are many changes in the coastline. I wouldn't say that it's a specific climate change. Climate change is going on, but when I talk to the communities, they don't feel the climate change as a global thing, but inside, what they feel inside is the coastline is changing. The habitats are changing, and the disposition of shells are changing in the way that there are some shells that were specific to an habitat, and this habitat disappears, so the shell decline. There are changes also in land management. So what we were talking about conservation. So the problem with conservation, what I see in Atauro is that they have make huge spaces where we are not allowed to go fishing. This makes marine protected areas, which I don't think they are bad, but I think where they are put in Atauro are creating conflicts, because not all the people was informed about these marine protected areas. Not all the people agreed with this, and it's just because some NGOs get there and say we need to not fish here anymore, so people has to go very far or just eat noodles. So there's a decrease, an important decrease on fish stocks, and there's a huge decline on fish, and they rely themselves on shells but shells also are decreasing, not only on the abundance, but also in the size. So now we collect shells that are smaller than the ones that we were able to look at before. So access to resources and land management, it comes together. So these places are blocking people also to go look after shells. There's also changes in transmission of knowledge. Before, kids, where they were not going to school, they would go with their mothers every day to the mangrove. They will learn with the mothers. Now this transmission is a little bit blocked, and they have new responsibilities, new things that are going on in the village, and the transmission of knowledge, like the new generations do not know the names of the species, the local name of the species. They have different. They have other type of knowledge, but not concerning shells, and they are not learning the techniques. They are not very skillful with the techniques. It doesn't say that kids do not do it. Kids, many kids know the name and look after, but I think in a retrospective regard from the local woman that I interviewed, they say before everybody would do this. Income and expenses. So we have new things new needs. So now we need to pay for the school fees, for the school material, for other type of things. So income and expenses are also changing in these localities, and there are big local markets that are opening. As I say, in Siberut, what happened is that this species was the only one who could provide a little bit of money to the local communities, and the species was specific because it was. What is important with shells too is that when we go collect them, shells stay good for 1 or 2 days or 3 days. You have to eat them right away, because if you don't eat them, they get raw, they get spoiled. So this shell that was able to be taken out of this very regulated area was a shell that would close the valves very hard, and it would stay good 7 days. And this is the reason why the transport was easy for this shell to get out, and this is the reason why everybody took it until there was no more. Actually, no more at all. Lifestyles and globalization. People is changing, and the life in these places are changing to globalization. And I would say that if we start talking about challenge, one of the big challenges in this area is meeting sustainability goals and development aspirations. People want to change also. People want to have a TV, people want to have access to internet, people want to have a phone. And for all this, they have to have money. And what is the only source of money that they can have is go look fishing and looking for shells. So they have to get out this, and well, this is a big challenge. And food security and food sovereignty. When we talk about food security, we talk about being able to have food. When we talk about food sovereignty, it's being able to choose what to eat. And this is a big challenge in this locality. We can have, for instance, noodles the whole time. I talk about noodles all the time, but we can have, but this is not food security, because people don't have the ability to choose. So let's talk about food sovereignty. And collaborative monitoring and management of coastal fisheries. Actually, it's really hard to make understand scientists and technical people from the local sites. The local people have knowledge regarding the sites. We overlooked the knowledge that local people have because we think they have not gone to school, they have not been able to be to university, and they don't have the knowledge that we have. So being able to say, okay, these people has a lot of knowledge, and we have to make not participatory monitoring. Because most of the problem with this participatory monitoring is that we give to the people the names or the indicators that they have to look after, and they have to signal. People are not involved in the analysis of saying, okay, where we going to monitor? I would say that it's better to have collaborative approaches where local people not only participate giving information to scientists that will treat the data and say, oh yeah, they went. No, people has to be included in all the steps of the monitoring process, from the conception to the analysis. There's a lot of lack of governmental support and policies. For instance, in Atauro, the government, it's, I would say, absent. What it's there, what brings the people together is church. So church plays an important role for social organization in these communities. Because, well, climate change and adaptation, adapting to all that is coming, in globalization, I would say that are the main challenges that these communities face. And this is one of my last diapositives. So I just would like to recall that shells are excellent indicators of coastal change and coastal quality. They can, with the shells, scientists can give the age of a deposit. They can know whether it has been climate events in the past. For instance, there's a shell that reproduces a lot in an invasive species, so this can give insights about local ecological conditions, ecosystem quality. Shells give also information, the flesh, about pollution, because the mollusks are filter organisms and they accumulate metals, heavy metals, and they give insights also, for ocean acidification. And what do people know about shells? What do local people know about shells? They know species diversity. They can make a list and give the species diversity that they see. Mostly are shells that they use. They know associations about these species, who is friend of who. They know lifestyles, behavior. They know population dynamics, whether a species has increased or whether it has declined. They know a lot about ecological history, what has happened, how their local space has changed in time, as coastal change too, how the landscape and the shoreline has been changing through time. They also know about vulnerability, how they feel about this vulnerability. And I was a little impressed because one of the main reports about mangrove talks about involving people, participation of people to assess social vulnerability, but they didn't talk about local people assessing ecological vulnerability, and they have knowledge. Adaptation too. And I would say this is my last diapositive, my last PowerPoint. So I would say that to keep on working with shells, it's very important to bridge and to bring together many disciplines. Ethnoecology, which is the way local people, and this is my PhD about ethnoecology, is the way local people perceive the environment, their knowledge about their environment. So we can, and the representation, how this change. So it's bridging ethnoecology with geography. So toponyms and landscape classification are extremely important to understand mollusk diversity and even changes, coastal changes. So toponyms play a very important role. Toponyms are the name of places. So Jakarta, local name of places. Fisheries has to be united with this. Fisheries dynamics, molluscan fisheries and management. There's not much research about molluscan fisheries. We have a lot of research about fisheries, the fish, but molluscan fisheries, it's not as documented as other type of fisheries. So bridging with ecology, habitat quality, biochemistry, because we have knowledge through the shell, and also the shells provide important nutrition. They are very important, valuable in nutrition, and archaeology, because archaeology, as they have a study, archaeology studies the shells that have been thrown by the local people somewhere, and they can see what type of shells were used in the past. So bridging all this together, I hope to keep on going and being able to encompass all the complexity of these socio-ecological systems of mollusks. Thank you very much.
So now, if everyone has any question. Yes.
Hello, I'm very interested with the cultural approach that you did during your research, and I was wondering, is there any sample, like what kind of cultural behavior change in this community, and then is this like a cultural or tradition where they have to, just in order to fend themselves, they have to, doing this thing, farming mollusks. It's any way the government there, or maybe, I don't know, it's bureaucracy there to help this community. And then what kind of approach ways do you talk to this community, and then how did they respond to researcher from abroad, foreigner, and then is there any challenge for you as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think there are many changes at cultural level, because let's talk about Siberut, Indonesia. Actually, there was a politic here of unification. So the people used to live. In the forest inside. Sorry, I just bring here. They would live here scattered in the forest, in this side of the island, and they would be living, well, by sukus, by tribes. And then the government, 30, 40 years ago, gave an initiative for unification and brought all these people to a new village, right here to Sarasau and to Tiopu. This village are quite organized, so their houses are perfectly, and they change a lot the way they look for food, because actually the government for 5 or 10 years gave cigarettes, gave mia, oil, gave rice, so it changed from sagu, which was what they eat before, to rice. But mostly what was most important is the religion completely changed in this area. I don't know if you have seen, I didn't put an emblematic picture of the Mentawai here, because in the area where I was, there was just few people who had tattoos, but before, if you had a tattoo, you could go to jail. If you practice the ancient religion, Sakudei, Sikerei, this was not accepted. So there's a lot of changes in the way people believes on the religion, But it doesn't mean that people is completely Catholic or Muslim. They have this link with the ancient religion, and you can see, for instance, a mix of people going to church and checking like they did before in their own ancient religion. So there's a fusion with it. And regarding how people accept or work or my work there, I have been very lucky to find people, beautiful people, and beautiful family over there. It was not easy. I got there by myself. And one of the first things is that when I got there, 2 or 3 days after, the person who received me in the house, well, it's a very long story, but I got to one house. I didn't know how to speak Indonesian, and I was received in this house. And 3 days after I got there for my long field work, this man got very, very, very sick. And I was very afraid that my coming would, in their systems of perception, would relate me with his sickness. But they were doing some traditional medicine, which I completely support. But in this moment, he had an asthma, and everybody was smoking next to him, everybody in the same room. And so there's a moment I say, okay, let's go to Rumah Sakit. Let's go to the hospital. And when we went to the hospital, the doctor would only talk to me and would give all the bills to me to pay. So I did this, and when we got back to the house, I was completely accepted as a family member, and from then on, I was really part of the family. So it was very easy to interact with them. I miss them very much. I have not gone there for a little while, but it also has to be with the personality and with the type of research you are doing. I've gone to Papua New Guinea with a big group of people looking for shells, and I found out that make my relation with people harder when I go accompanied with because not all the people has the same way to respect local knowledge. So yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes.
Hello, my name is Intan. Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. I have a few questions regarding to the marine protected areas that are created by the NGO. So it created conflicts for the people because they can't find them anymore in the areas. But I believe that some of them are also aware of the decreasing numbers of shellfish. So are there any villagers who are concerned about it and try to conserve it on their own? I mean, like before the NGO come, maybe they try to farm the shellfish if it's possible, or do something that doesn't require a lot of research. And my second question would be...
Let me just answer this one first.
Okay.
Okay, for the marine protected area, yeah, people can be aware of the decrease, and some people would completely agree that the marine protected area would be found in this zone. But actually, what makes the decline of shellfish in Severud was the fact that it was being sold. The shell was being sold. Before, actually, it was sustainable. And people would not have like a moment that would not go fishing because they need the fish to reproduce. They didn't have this in their mind. They were aware that there were earthquakes. The shell would die. And actually also for this one, for this shell, they would, when I would go look for it, the people would say, if you don't find them, you're gonna kill them. I was, why? How comes? And she said, yeah, if you don't take it out, if you have gone on the floor like this and you don't take it out, she will die. And I was, okay. I was not sure. And when I go to the French Museum of Natural History and I told that to a scientist, another scientist, a colleague, he said, oh, they're completely right. Because actually, these shells have some sort of siphons to breathe and come out from here. You see this? And when you destroy that, to make this again is very hard, so it's very probably that they would die. So they knew they had to get the shell. And I would say that they would not collect more than they can eat or that they can share with the other people, but they don't have a system where blocks to go look for shells. The only moment that I saw that nobody could go look for shells in Siberut was when a little girl of 4 or 5 years old, she has drowned on the mangrove, and people need to, they would call this clean the mangrove from the spirit from her. So so they would make a lot of rituals for her, a lot of rituals, and there were 2 or 3 days that nobody could go fishing, but it was more related to this specific event than for conservation purposes. And I would say that in Atauro, in Timor Leste, yeah, there are people who it's okay with MPA, but there's some MPAs, marine protected areas, that are too big and that are creating conflicts with the local communities. And as I say, they were not involved in choosing the sites. The NGO got there, and a little bit of how to say, yeah, they say we have to block from here, but there's no reason to do it from here or here. They just decide because it makes areas, numbers.
So I assume that the NGO didn't try to give solutions to the people in order to survive without shellfishing, or maybe do it less by doing something else, because there are these marine protected areas.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Do the NGO give any solutions to the people to not shellfish in the area and do something else and still survive?
Not to my knowledge. Yeah. I don't know. No, they just blocked, and they don't have provided, to my knowledge, they don't have provided other means of action to be able to sustain themselves. So this is creating also poorness and lack of nutrition.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Just a short question. How could they overfish? Because usually, I mean, local people, they know how to, without scientific knowledge, they know how to preserve.
Yes. I think the only moment that they overfish is when there are commercial purpose behind it. So they will go for more fish or more that they can eat. It's only when they have a commercial purpose behind, so that they can sell the shellfish. I don't know if I answer your question. When I was there, people would fish, for instance, in Siberut, would fish strictly what they would be able to consume. But if they have a little bit more, they would share with another person, because the other one would share with them in another moment. And the only time that they overfish was this Chinese company came in Padang to Siberut and start buying all the shells that these people could provide. So the people, no more gender, men and women would go, and they would look only for this type of shell, Anadara granosa. Yeah.
So they offer fish. In some words, in exchange of for TVs and television.
Yeah, not only TVs but phones too. For other type of needs, for buying rice. Also, a lot of rice is needed now because sagu has decreased. Making sagu has decreased. So yeah, they need money. They are in a system that to survive you need money now.
Is there any other question? Okay, so do you want to conclude maybe?
Yeah, well, I would just say that, well, thank you everyone for being here. Molluscan fisheries is extremely important in Southeast Asia and Oceania. Not only the flesh of the shell is important, but also the shell it's very, very important, but they also looking a lot for the shells, not only to eat, but to sell. And there's a huge souvenir industry in Indonesia, Philippines, and that it's moving a lot of species. And this is a big problem because most of the species that are sold, they play a very important ecological role in the ecosystem. So we are taking now organisms that play a fundamental role for the quality and the health of the ecosystem. So I would say that there's a lot of need of research in here in Indonesia regarding molluscan fisheries and regarding trade of shells. Because most of the shells that you see in Bali being sold as souvenirs, actually they come from Philippines. They are not taken anymore in Bali because Bali doesn't have any more shells. They have the decline of shells is very important in this area. So all the shells come from abroad. Yeah, so thank you very much, and I would just encourage all the people, all the students who are here that might like to go further into molluscan studies, go, because there's a scientific niche not occupied. So there are possibilities. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for coming and for this really exciting conference. Thank you all for coming, and please don't forget our next conference